Greetings everyone. वेलकम टू द चैनल. आई होप आप सब अच्छे होंगे, स्वास्थ्य अच्छा होगा आपका. मैं आपके साथ आ गया हूँ संडे का द हिंदू न्यूज़ एनालिसिस लेके मई 21, 2023. और आज के संडे के न्यूज़पेपर एनालिसिस में हम कुछ की इम्पॉर्टेंट एरियाज़ को कवर करेंगे और बाकी सभी एरियाज़ को हम क्या करने वाले हैं, गुड टू रीड के पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से छोड़ने वाले हैं. अब देखिए 1984 के दंगों के ऊपर चार्जशीट फाइल हुई है इतने समय के बाद, जगदीश टाइटलर के ऊपर. उस न्यूज़ को हम कवर करेंगे. केरला सोवेनार नेटवर्क प्रोजेक्ट क्या है, वील ट्राई टू डिस्कस अबाउट दिस. सिद्धारमैया हैज़ टेकन चार्ज एज कर्नाटका चीफ मिनिस्टर. दिस इज़ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. And the cabinet, that is the new government in Karnataka, has approved 5 poll guarantees. The poll guarantees imply the guarantees that were given during the campaign, election campaign. So this is completely political news, but then we need to understand what kind of guarantees or what kind of schemes have been announced in the state of Karnataka. There has been a small summit, Quad summit, on sidelines of G7, and India has met for the very first time in person Mr. Zelensky. Now, Mr. Zelensky is president of Ukraine. What India has assured to Ukraine becomes primarily very important when it comes to India's stand on Russia-Ukraine crisis. There is another news that is making rounds on social media as well as internet, where the government has passed an ordinance. And in this ordinance, the central government, has tried to undo what the Supreme Court decision had done. The bone of contention, the dispute, the main area that is at conflict between the Delhi government and the union government is with respect to the powers, the extension of powers of executive authorities, that is the bureaucrats, that is the IAS IPS officers. If it is a union territory, these services belongs to the union government. But Article 239AA, 239AA makes sure that the Lieutenant Governor has a final say, and Chief Minister also to an extent is responsible for administration of the Delhi capital. But then these bureaucrats and IS officers are on central deputation. What do you mean by that? Central deputation means that they are in the control of central government, which is represented by Lieutenant Governor V.K. Saxena. And with that, the Chief Minister of Union Territory of Delhi, Arvind Kejriwal, does not have adequate machinery at his hands, at his disposal, to make sure that the administration of Delhi vests with the elected representative, that is the Chief Minister, and not with the appointed representative, that is the Lieutenant Governor. These are the primary national news that should be covered, that has to be covered, right? Before we kickstart, let me point out all the important news that you need to see. The second news, just a minute. The second news that we see here is related to again this the same issue, and that is talking about the government in Union Delhi, and they have stated that we are going to hit out the streets against this ordinance. Now, what do you need to study primarily when it comes to ordinance? What is the ordinance making power? Very first thing we need to understand is this. So let me tell you in brief what is meaning of ordinance and why it is in news. So I'm not going to state you the provisions because at a time I also do not remember that, but I can generally try to tell you what is the nature of this ordinance. Now you see, these ordinances are like laws. These ordinances are like laws, right? How to put an end to this? These ordinances are like laws, and these laws are special laws as they are made, yeah, they are passed when legislature is not in session. Always remember this. For an ordinance to be valid, it must be ensured that legislature is not in a session. What do you mean by this? Legislature is not in a session primarily means that बैठक नहीं हो रही है, मीटिंग नहीं हो रही है, पार्लियामेंट की हो चाहे विधानसभा की हो, मंत्री परिषद और ऑपोजिशन सभा में बैठे नहीं हैं. As you know, with respect to your Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, there are 3 sessions in a year, and it all starts with the monsoon session. So this is the second session. The first is usually the budget session, and the year ends with the winter session. And these meetings are for a very small period of time. So all the law making process is completed in these sessions. All the law making process is completed in these sessions. But what if suddenly an emergency arises and there is a requirement of expedient immediate law to be there? Can the government do that? So what is provided in the constitution is that both the president as well as the governor, they have special powers. They have special powers with respect to lawmaking. Right? And what is the special power that they have? That their assent, that their final mohar, that the final tick is very important, that their final sign is very important for anything done during the law making process to be validated as a law. But then it can only happen when legislature is in a session, when either of these sessions are going on. But if either of these sessions are not going on, the president as well as the governor also has law making process for a short period of time. And this short period of time means 6 months. The ordinance validity is 6 months, right? And this ordinance will have the force of law. But as soon as legislature is in session, legislature meets, decision with respect to ordinance must be taken. Right? You will always remember this. Which means that this ordinance is not permanent. If the legislature comes in meeting, they will take a decision on the ordinance. Either the ordinance will be made into a law passed by legislature, or the ordinance would be discontinued. Can this ordinance be challenged in a court of law? Just like any other law can be challenged before the High Court or the Supreme Court with respect to its constitutionality? Absolutely yes. Ordinance also having force of law have to pass the test of constitutionality. And the test of constitutionality can only be done by the constitutional courts, that is the High Court and the Supreme Court. Now, interestingly, what has turned out to in Delhi is this, that the Delhi government wants the bureaucrats to be in their control. You will find this narration, within the central government seizing back the control over bureaucracy by introducing an ordinance less than 10 days after the Supreme Court ruled in favor of Delhi government, Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal on Saturday announced that Aam Aadmi Party will hit the streets against the centre moves. Now, this is a political opinion, obviously, that the ordinance is against the will of the people, and I will go to the people door to door. Now they are not able to challenge this in the Supreme Court. You know why? Because union government is very clever. Supreme Court has gone on a vacation for at least 6 weeks, and that is a summer vacation, which means the ordinance will remain valid. There is no ground where it can be challenged before the court. Unable to seek legal recourse immediately as the Supreme Court closed on 6-week summer break on Friday evening, the AAP leaders launched a verbal tirade to denounce the ordinance. Now the timing is important, right? This ordinance has done what? So it has created a 3-member National Capital Service Authority. 3-member. How many members in this authority? 3 members. Now, this particular position establishes the Chief Minister of Delhi as the chairperson of this particular authority, right? But Chief Minister will be in a minority when matters are put to vote, as Chief Secretary and Home Secretary, who will be appointed by the centre, outnumber the representatives elected by the people of Delhi. Now, what is important in this particular authority is that there are 3 members: Chief Minister, Chief Secretary, Home Secretary. Now, Chief Secretary and Home Secretary are the positions allotted to IAS officers. So, once IAS officers, you see everywhere what happens, democratic decisions. 5 judges बैठते हैं कोर्ट में, तो 3 अगर कह रहे हैं yes, 2 कह रहे हैं no, तो yes को माना जाता है. सिमिलरली इलेक्शन कमीशन में 3 सदस्य हैं, 2 कह रहे हैं yes, 1 कह रहा है no, तो 2 की बात मानी जाती है. लेजिस्लेचर में भी 51% लोग अगर किसी चीज़ को फेवर कर रहे हैं तो उसको माना जाता है. उसी तरीके से इस पर्टिकुलर अथॉरिटी में भी जो 3 मेंबर्स हैं, उसमें वन ऑफ द पर्सन चेयरमैन इज द चीफ मिनिस्टर, एंड ही इज इक्वल in his vote with respect to other 2 members who are Chief Secretary and Home Secretary. Now, Chief Minister is the elected representative. Vote जीत के आया है. But Chief Secretary और Home Secretary are bureaucratic positions. IPS or IS officers. Most likely IS officers. Now, IS officers are appointed by Union Public Service Commission and they are given oath and affirmation by the President. But then they work with Union government. So any decision with respect to the deputation or the salary or the service conditions or the powers of bureaucrats within the Delhi will be decided by this particular authority. And if Home Secretary and Chief Secretary with the guidance of the central government say anything unanimously together and outvotes the Chief Minister will merely become a puppet. He'll just be a mere voice that can be silenced by the other 2 members. This is a matter of concern. Now, the Supreme Court verdict has made sure that the officers within the Delhi government stay with the Chief Minister. With respect to 3 areas, for land, for police duties and everything, the Lieutenant Government will be in charge, but for other matters, for law and order and administration, the Delhi government will be in charge. Now, the Supreme Court has stated, given this verdict, central government has passed an ordinance reintroducing what was earlier, right? And what is the contention? What the government is saying? So, the government is saying, sir, that you see, we need to understand the difference between union territory and state. Union territory is a very unique feature of Indian Constitution. Union territory means it is the territory of union government. It is the territory of union government. But Delhi, being a UT, has dual edges because it is also a UT, but it also has elected body. So it is a union territory, which means it is under union government. But it has elected body where chief minister comes into picture, and chief minister tries to make union territory of Delhi or run union territory of Delhi as a state. But how is state different from union territory? The state is different from union territory because there is a state government. There is a precise state government, and the bureaucrats are answerable to the state government. But with respect to the union territory of Delhi, the bureaucrats are still confused because either they are answerable to lieutenant governor, who is a representative, LG, who is a representative of state government, or they could be answerable to chief minister. Now the central government wants the bureaucrats to be with lieutenant governor, whereas the chief minister wants that ये bureaucrats मेरे अंडर पे आ जाएं, तभी तो law and order maintain कर पाएंगे. This is the issue, and the primary article is Article 239AA. So what, my friends, you are going to do is, you are going to simply Google Article 239AA. You will try to understand why it was introduced, when it was introduced, and what are the wordings. With respect to the comparison in powers of Chief Minister and Lieutenant Governor, always remember that since Union Territory of Delhi is a Union Territory, the power of Lieutenant Governor will override any power that elected representative Chief Minister has. Now this also tells us about the faults and the services that we have, the services as in the gaps, CER wala services, the crevices, the services, the cleavages, the faults, the fault lines, the voidness that we have in the Indian Constitution, where some matters need consistent overhauling and interpretation by the judiciary, as well as the people, as well as the legislature. So we'll see what happens in coming days. With respect to the other news, this is very important. 1984 riots, CBI has filed charge sheets against Titler, right? For being a part of anti-Sikh riots, and this has been filed by Chief Metropolitan Magistrate of Rouse Avenue District, right? And the charges are that they have incited, instigated, and provoked the mob that assembled at Pul Bangash Gurudwara on 1st of November 1984. Now CBI has alleged that this particular mob that gathered has torched and looted the religious site as well as some shops. And it all started with the murder of 3 Sikh men, and the names are very important. That is Sardar Thakur Singh, Badal Singh, and Gurchar Singh. This also led to assassination of her then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi on October 31st, 1984 by her Sikh bodyguards. Very, very important. Now please remember the word assassination. Assassination is an important term. Assassination is a public killing of an important eminent person. If a terrorist is being killed, or if a police is encountering a criminal, we can't call it an assassination because the person is not of public importance. But if a public important person, a person who is publicly very important, holds key important positions, is killed in public by the public, would be termed as assassination. Now Indira Gandhi was assassinated on 31st October 1984. Now there are certain provisions in IPC that we need to remember, which has been invoked in this particular matter. Section 147 is respect to riots. Section 148 and 149 is with respect to unlawful assembly, and it indicates that if there are more than 5 people are together at a present point for unlawful purposes, for unlawful object, and then that assembly, then such type of gathering would be termed as unlawful assembly. And also if it is in violation of any law which restricts you from gathering together, would also be termed as unlawful assembly. 153 is for provocation on religious grounds, trying to create conflict between two different communities. 109 is for abetment. What do you mean by abetment? Abetment means aiding a particular crime, right? Helping to commit a particular crime. You are equally entitled for the punishment as much as the doer of the punishment is, doer of the crime is. Then along with section 302 where murder is defined, and 295 where defiling of religious places, which means damaging the religious places, hurting the religious sentiments is there, and that has been all charged. What is important with respect to question is this, that in year 2000 there was a commission. So you remember the name of this particular commission. That is, in 2000, Justice Nanavati Commission was set up by the center to probe various incidents during the 1984 riots. Nanavati Commission, year 2000, with respect to 1984 riots. This commission tabled the report in 2005, and then based on this report, Ministry of Home Affairs directed the CBI to investigate the case against Mr. Titler and others, right? The agency had previously given him a clean sheet in the Pul Bangash case, but then the court directed to reopen the matter in 2015, and they have filed a new charge sheet, almost reversing what they had found earlier. So they cleared Titler earlier in 2005 somewhere around, but then in 2015 again the fresh investigations were started, and after around 7 years we can see that new charge sheet has been filed. Now what is important from this particular paragraph for us to remember is this: Central Bureau of Investigation cannot investigate any matter suo motu, which means cannot investigate based on its own cognizance. It needs the directions and permission of which ministry? Ministry of Home Affairs. Always remember this. With respect to establishment of Central Bureau of Investigation, it was established on 1st April 1963, right? And it was primarily formulated to look into the corruption matters. But then the scope of investigation with respect to CBI was enlarged. Other news that we find is important is the foundation day for Telangana, right? The 10th anniversary, that is almost 10 years have passed for the creation of Telangana. It was formed in 2014, and on which day? That day is very important. That day is 2nd of June. Remember this. Also remember the name of Chief Minister, that is K. Chandrasekhar Rao. He is the Chief Minister of Telangana, right? And it has been separated or carved out from which state? Andhra Pradesh. We'll remember this, right? K. Siddaramaiah is the new Chief Minister of Karnataka. Everyone knows it. So we'll look into the schemes that they have announced, but that is not very much important as of now. We'll try to move to more important matter, and this is with respect to what is going on in Manipur. Now there is this particular community which is in conflict with the Meitei community, and that is the Kuki tribe. The Kuki tribe is in conflict with the Meitei community. We know it, right? So Someng Thang Daungel, who is a leader of the apex body of Kuki tribe in Manipur, said that these Meitei people are trying to make you believe, right, that they are non-tribal and they cannot settle in the state's hill, is a myth. It's not like that. Someng Thang Daungel is saying that it's a myth. Now we'll try to understand with what is the issue, what is the present standing issue between the Meitei community and the Kuki community, right? So Mr. Daungel is also the chairman of a steering committee, Kuki Impi Manipur, and he is basically alleging that the Chief Minister Biren Singh, right, is using a political propaganda where he's terming Kuki people as illegal immigrants, and he's trying to capture the land belonging to the Kuki people, and he has plans to push these tribal community away from the valley as well as the state of Manipur. Now he stated that Meitei people do not have enough land. This is a myth. He says that they reside in the Imphal Valley, which is one of the most fertile and productive plains in India, and their population density is very much similar to that of any other urban center. So when you say that Imphal Valley is becoming congested because of concentration of important government offices, eminent educational, technical and medical institutions government infrastructure is important, right? The hill districts are almost neglected because there is no development activity, there is no proper funding. Now he states that Mathi cannot settle in hill areas is baseless because this is section 158, which states the section 158 of the Manipur Land Revenue and Land Reforms Act 1960 restricts the non-tribals, including the Mathis, from directly purchasing tribal land, but they can, through the consent of district councils, buy the land in the hilly areas, which means there is a provision that they can buy. Mathi community can buy a land area protected under scheduled areas. They can buy the land of tribal peoples if the district councils allow them to do so. So there are many Mathi localities already there in the hilly regions. Now, if Mathi community would be given the scheduled tribe status, what will happen? Currently, these Mathi communities have to take permissions from the district councils if they want to buy the land of any tribal community in the hill. See, tribal communities have a very special position in our constitution, right? Now, tribal communities are very small, less in number, and they are also localized in a particular region, in a particular geography, isn't it? So, what the constitution has done for them is that their lands are very much protected, which means that you cannot buy it if you are not a tribal person. किसी की ज़मीन हम खरीद लेते हैं उसको ज़्यादा पैसा दे के बिकॉज वो गरीब है, अब वो हमेशा गरीब रहने वाला है ना. आपने उसकी ज़मीन खरीद ली, पैसा तो उसके पास आ गया, पर अगर उस पैसे से वो नई ज़मीन खरीद के कुछ नया बिजनेस नहीं कर पाया, नई दुकान नहीं खोल पाया या कुछ नया नहीं कर पाया, तो वो तो गरीब ही रहने वाला है. और ट्राइबल कम्युनिटी में वैसे भी शिक्षा उतनी ज़्यादा होती नहीं है कि वो मॉडर्न फॉर्म्स ऑफ एम्प्लॉयमेंट, नए तरह के एम्प्लॉयमेंट करें जाके, हाईली स्किल्ड जॉब करें जाके, तो वो ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा लेबरर बन जाएगा या एग्रीकल्चरल लेबरर बन जाएगा, और वो भी अपने ही एरिया में. इसलिए ट्राइबल एरियाज़ की ज़मीनों को संरक्षण दिया गया है. आप खरीद नहीं सकते. जैसे हम लोग अगर चाहें तो हम जम्मू एंड कश्मीर में जाके ज़मीन नहीं खरीद सकते, हम आसाम में जाके ज़मीन नहीं खरीद सकते, बिकॉज हम लोग यूपी और दिल्ली में बैठे हैं. आर यू गेटिंग दिस पॉइंट? सो दिस इज द बोन ऑफ कंटेंशन. नाउ मैथी कम्युनिटी कैन बाय, बट अगर उनको शेड्यूल्ड ट्राइब स्टेटस मिल गया, इफ दे आर ग्रांटेड द शेड्यूल्ड ट्राइब स्टेटस, they would not be requiring the prior consent of a district council. That is what it says, that if Mathi community is granted the ST status, then the consent of the district councils becomes redundant, is not important. The ST demand was one of the major factors behind the Mathi Kuki clashes that has claimed more than 70 lives and displaced more than 35,000 people 15 days ago. Mr. Dongle demanded the state government for pushing a theory that Kukis are illegal migrants constantly crossing over from civil war ravaged Myanmar. Right? Since illegal immigrants are prohibited by laws in India from purchasing land, calling us illegal immigrant is a way of supporting the false claim that a land is not ours and the Manipur government should take control of it. By virtue of Article 5 of the Constitution of India, he says that we are also the citizens of India by birth, by descent, and residing in a country for more than 5 years. The illegal immigrant narrative is purely racist and anti-tribal, and this is being sold to usurp our ancestral lands. This is what Kim Leader has stated. Now you will find that the tribal sentiments are so much important in India that it can create a problem of civil conflict, civil war between two communities. And this is where we need to put more focus on the regional issues. Now, in the similar light, again, I will tell you this, look at this, the Director General of Police. Now, Director General of Police is a UPSC selected candidate, right? IPS candidate, but is working with Manipur government. So, Manipur Director General of Police P. Dongle has denied the claims that personals from the Kuki tribe have been stripped of their duties, calling them false propaganda and baseless. He said that there were 10 members of legislative assemblies from the hill districts who have stated that the policemen of the Methi community were posted in areas with Kuki population. And Kuki policemen have been removed. But the Director General of Police stated that it is not like that. Kuki policemen are continuing their normal duties. These 10 legislators, including 7 of the ruling BJP, have been demanding a separate administration amidst violence in the state. Since 3rd of May, clashes between the Kuki and Methi communities over the latter's demand for scheduled tribe status have claimed them more than 80 people life and displaced so many. In the similar light, again, you see in the national page, the dispute, the tussle between the Delhi government and the union government goes on, and the center has sought review of the Supreme Court verdict. What the Supreme Court has stated needs review. This is what the central government is saying, right? You will find the center said that the decision given by a constitution bench which was headed by Chief Justice of India D.Y. Chandrachud had the effect of declaring Delhi as a full-fledged state when it is actually a union territory. Actually, a union territory means that the government is saying that it is within the control of the union government. Now, he clearly demarcates that these union territories are not states. They are the territories under which union subjects would be there. The judgment will upset the basic tenets of the constitutional idea of federalism. It has equated national capital of territory to a state by granting it legislative and executive authority, which is all the more present in a state. And 370-page review petition is filed in top court. The union government said that Delhi has never been elevated to the level of a state. The center said the judgment was self-contradictory in nature, terming that Delhi had a sui generis or a special status, while at the same time treating it as a state. Sui generis, special status. The Legislative Assembly of NCT Delhi is not a full-fledged legislative assembly. This is what the government is saying before the Supreme Court, asking the Supreme Court to once again review the decision that they have made. And then the Delhi government cannot enjoy the same power as a state government enjoys over state list. Now, the center has argued that for a union territory, the parliament is the sole legislative body. The judgment, though accepting the superior legislative authority of the parliament over Delhi, had gone to recognize extensive legislative and executive powers to the Delhi Council of Ministers and the Legislative Assembly, which is not done. The review plea said the legislative powers are distributed between parliament and state legislatures and not between parliament and legislative assemblies of the union territories. Very important. Please focus on this paragraph. Very precisely, what the central government is trying to say before the Supreme Court is that if we talk about concurrent list, it's the power to make laws on common subjects, and the power vests with the Lok Sabha, the Rajya Sabha, that is the parliament, and the legislature of a state, not of a union territory. So the petition further stated that it also contradicts a 1997 9-judge bench decision of the Supreme Court in New Delhi Municipal Corporation versus State of Punjab, in which it was clearly held that notwithstanding the 69th Amendment, which introduced a legislative assembly for Delhi, the NCT of Delhi remains a union territory. Please remember this 69th Amendment introducing the legislative assembly for Delhi, right? Very important. Would you remember this? Thank you so much. The center said that there is also another Article 309 of the Constitution, which clearly distinguished between the center and the state services. The civil services in a union territory clearly belong to the center. The appointments and transfers are made in Delhi administration in accordance with the central recruitment rules approved by the president through lieutenant governor under Article 309. Now, where the government is wrong. The judgment wholly ignores the nominee of the president, the lieutenant governor, or the central government are also manifestations of democracy, exhibiting democratic conscience of the country as a whole when compared to the elected government of the Delhi. The central government is administered by the people of the entire country who have a vital and preponderant interest in the governance of the capital of the entire country. This is what the review petition has conducted. Now, it would be very tough time for the Supreme Court to go against this review petition because it is so detailed and so fantastically relying on the provisions of the Constitution. Well, let's see what happens in time, right? Another with respect to Jammu and Kashmir tourism is that the G20 tourism is going to be there and it will ultimately bring huge investment flow in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. That is the Lieutenant Governor Manoj Sinha is expecting. Now, he said that the upcoming G20 working group is going to meet in Srinagar, put Kashmir's famed hospitality on display and give a big boost to the tourism. The city has been given a major makeover for the event. The Jhelum Rajbagh riverfront, which has been given a facelift, was dedicated to the public by Mr. Sinha. Now remember the river, the Jhelum, and the city, Srinagar. The JNK administration has also finalized all arrangements. But then, you know what? China has stated that Jammu and Kashmir remains a disputed international territory and probably they are not going to come and visit. So what happens there is a bone of contention. It has to be seen. Another important news that has come to the fore is that the Quad leaders have expressed deep concerns over consequences of Ukraine war. It is a high time for India, where it is now going to host. It was a part special invitee in the G7 summit that happened in Hiroshima, Japan. Now you know that the G7 community, the Great Seven community, has clearly stated that they are going to impose more sanctions on Ukraine. India was an invited guest, so could not speak much. Also, even if India could have spoken, the views of India do not matter because it is primarily a G7 summit. And what these 7 countries decide for themselves is important. So their vision statement does not find the reverberations that Indian diplomacy is putting forward at the global forum. But then, nonetheless, India has a huge opportunity. India had a huge opportunity, in fact, to become a part of a small Quad summit, because America is not going to visit Sydney this year, where Quad summit was scheduled to be happen in Australia. Now, since America is not there, it can't be termed as a Quad summit because 4 members have to be there. But then, this particular small summit that happened did not mention the position of G7 when it came to the meeting of the Quad, which clearly indicates that America, Japan, and Australia are also considering India's narrative and viewpoints with respect to Russia-Ukraine war or the regional conflicts. But they have one thing in common. All these 4 countries are disturbed, perturbed, provoked by unilateral actions that China is taking. In this particular news piece, you will find that both India and America are saying that Indo-Pacific is very, very vital for global economy. Now, what China is doing is that it is militarizing the conflicted zones, that it is weaponizing the bilateral issues, that it is trying to corner or circumvent these countries. They are also using Coast Guard vessels, which has capability to wage terrorist or militant attacks in the coastlines, which is a unilateral violation of international law. These countries have together decided to cooperate on matters of international maritime domain awareness, in matters of cybersecurity, in matters of critical and emerging technologies, including responsible usage with respect to artificial intelligence. This clearly indicates that Quad is not lost in the sea. The Quad still has teeth and has some relevance with respect to common ideas, common objectives. And the common objectives largely between these members is energy security and maritime security. So how they are going to formulate and come out together as stronger has to be seen. But then please understand this, that America tried to define Quad as rival group to counter or to bring China in a submissive position in the Indian Ocean, but India denied that. India stated, no, it's not like that. So we'll have to see what goes on. But then the large part is that these countries agree that the bilateral relations should not shadow, should not cloud what is important for multilateral institutions or multilateral arrangements to continue, right? Then again, what is more important has come to the fore is, you see, the Canada has observed Tamil Genocide Day, to which Sri Lanka is not very happy. Sri Lanka has stated the Foreign Ministry of Sri Lanka has called the Canada envoy, summoned the Canada envoy, High Commissioner, and stated that your Prime Minister is giving politically motivated statements which will ultimately have a divisive impact on the Sri Lankan community. Now, what is that day when Canada observes Tamil Genocide Day? And that is May 18th. That is Tamil Genocide Remembrance Day. Now, why May 18th? You see, Sri Lanka has come out of a civil war. And the civil war has been because of two different languages. That is, the Tamil speaking people and Sinhali speaking people. Now, Tamil speaking people are largely divided into three religions: Hindus, Muslims, and Buddhists. And Sinhali speaking people are largely Buddhists. Now, what has the bone of contention is that there was a last civil war that happened. And a lot of Tamilians lost their life. So a lot of Tamilians are also living in Canada, and they must have pressurized the Canadian government to speak against the human rights violations, the peace and democratic violations that was taken for granted in Sri Lanka during the civil war, right? And the final battle that ensued was in Mulli Vaikal, in the northern Mullai Tivo district. The island remains deeply divided over the war and its end. So on May 18th in Canada, a lot of Tamilians gathered to remember their loved ones. And they were also trying to remember the dead or the disappeared around the final battle. But then, on the contrary, what happens? The Mahinda Rajapaksa government observes the other day, that is May 19th, as a victory day. And the victory day, the soldiers are called as the war heroes, which means the soldiers responsible for shooting down the Tamilians are called as war heroes. And they particularly shot the Tamilians in the zone which was primarily declared as a no-fire zone. It led to 40,000 civilian deaths. But then President Vikram Singhe and Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena, very important names, the President Ranil Wickremesinghe and Prime Minister Dinesh Gunawardena observed this day, May 19th, as a victory day, contrary to what Canada has observed as a genocide day a day before. This is very important to understand, that you see one community can have such a deep impact on the domestic relations as well as the bilateral relations between two Commonwealth countries. This is also a very interesting thing. We are talking about, now look at the democracy, look at the kind of democracy India has. We recognized the third gender, existence of third gender, when we decriminalized homosexuality. When we allowed two consenting adult individuals to have consensual sexual relations. Now, that too in 2017-18, Navtej Singh Johar judgment of the Supreme Court. Now, coming to the present times, the Supreme Court is arguing whether same-sex marriages should be validated or not. Look at the advanced civilization we have become. Because we are based on rule of law, we acknowledge fundamental rights, human rights. We make sure that religious ideologies, religious radicalization, religion does not trudge over, tamper the constitutional morals and the principles. But look at what is happening in Pakistan right now. Pakistan trans activists, that is the transgender community, is still fighting. The Islamic court, who has the power to impose Shariat law over Constitution of Pakistan. This is very, very important for us to remember. The crisis that has come upon Pakistan right now vehemently forces Pakistan to become a liberal economic as well as liberal religious country, because no other foreign country would be ready to invest in your country if you will be governed by a religious radicalization. To some Muslims, it might be the golden era for Pakistan, because Pakistan is not letting go of their religion. But similar is the situation in Turkey. You see, Recep Tayyip Erdogan might have won the prime ministership, right? But he is not dearly loved. And this is very important to understand that a lot of young Turkey boys and girls do not want religious principles to be enforced in Turkey anymore. They want Turkey to be a secular Islamic country. So we look into these aspects, right? In short. However, I would have loved to cover these topics, but then the dearth of time that I have right now does not allow me to take it further. But yes, you can read these news, very interesting with respect to what is going on around the world. This is important, but not very important, so you can try to give it a read. This is very important. I would suggest please read it, because polio eradication is very important, right? Only Pakistan and Afghanistan are the two countries where polio is still there. And in 1988, the World Health Assembly had established this particular authority initiative, Global Polio Eradication Initiative. And the Global Polio Eradication Initiative had a target to make sure that the polio virus cases around the world drop completely, right? And the target that they set was 2026. However, Pakistan and Afghanistan are unable to achieve it. This is important. Another, carbon dating. With respect to carbon dating, you know that carbon C14 is responsible for carbon dating, determining the life of organic products, organic materials that we find during excavation. But the limitation in carbon 14 dating is that since the half-life of carbon C14 is 5,700 years, this technique cannot detect the age of anything which is older than 50,000 years, but calcium C14 can do so. So we'll try to read it, try to understand from Science and Tech what is C14 and how is carbon dating done. And that's all for today's The Hindu Analysis. I hope you enjoyed listening to one of the major issues, bone of contention that is going on. This was Harshvardhan Tripathi taking your leave, signing off from today's newspaper analysis. I'll see you guys in the next.